China's new J-50 stealth jet is not just real, it is already flying. And the moment clear images surfaced, a single question spread quickly through defense circles. Could this aircraft threaten the next fighter Lockheed is working on? The jet exposes a gap in the sixth-generation race. For years, the world expected China to follow and copy. Instead, it appears to have jumped ahead with a design that even the United States considers extremely difficult to execute. This was not supposed to happen yet. The J-50 does not resemble the fighters we are used to seeing. It has no vertical tails, no conventional stabilizers, and uses a wing shape that only a handful of countries have ever seriously attempted. Yet it is flying. Not in a wind tunnel, not confined to a lab. It is in open air, with chase aircraft alongside it. Most analysts did not expect China to reach this stage so soon. So what makes this aircraft different? Why does its shape matter so much? And why are experts saying it puts pressure on Lockheed before the next U.S. fighter even leaves the hangar? Things get even more unusual here. The J-50 is not alone. China revealed two tailless jets at the same time, each developed by a different manufacturer. One is the heavier J-36. The other is the smaller, sharper J-50. Both appeared years earlier than most Western planners expected any sixth-generation aircraft to fly. That sudden jump is why the J-50 is not being treated as a simple technology demonstrator. It is being seen as a warning, a signal that China may be shaping the next phase of air combat faster than Lockheed and its peers predicted. But the real story begins with the shape itself. How does a tailless fighter stay stable? Why does this layout make experienced engineers uneasy? And why did China choose now to reveal it? To understand that, we need to start with the first major clue, the design that should not work, yet clearly does. The shock began with a handful of photos taken over China in late 2024. A J-16 chase jet was flying beside an unfamiliar aircraft that looked flat, wide, and almost unfinished. A nose boom showed it was still in early testing. The landing gear was extended, but the real surprise was the overall form. There were no vertical tails at all. The upper surface looked clean and uninterrupted. The fuselage blended smoothly into the wings, almost like a single piece. At first, many analysts assumed it was a drone. China operates numerous experimental unmanned aircraft, and they often appear in low-quality images before receiving official names. A closer look changed that assumption. The J-50 had the size and proportions of a compact fighter. As more images emerged, the conclusion became unavoidable. This was not a drone. It was a manned, next-generation fighter prototype. The timing made the reveal even more striking. The U.S. NGAD fighter remains hidden behind classification. Europe's FCAS and GCAP programs are still largely limited to mock-ups and digital renders. None of them have public flight imagery. China, meanwhile, had two tailless jets in the air at the same time. The heavy J-36 from Chengdu and the smaller J-50 from Shenyang appeared on the same day. Both showed realistic control surfaces and test equipment consistent with genuine development aircraft. That moment made it impossible for Lockheed to assume the United States would automatically define the next generation of fighters. This was not an accidental leak. The appearance happened on December 26, a date linked to the birth of Mao Zedong. The timing was symbolic, but also deliberate. China was signaling that it had entered a new tier of fighter design, moving beyond copying older concepts and into testing some of the most demanding shapes in aviation. As weeks passed, clearer images followed. Analysts identified diverterless intakes, side-mounted weapons bays, a chin section shaped for an electro-optical system, and rectangular exhausts that suggested thrust vectoring. Each feature matched what you would expect from a true next-generation platform, not an early experiment. By January 2025, major defense outlets were publishing detailed analyses. The War Zone, Jane's, and Aviation Week all pointed to the same conclusion. China was not just experimenting, it was flying. And that distinction mattered. It forced Lockheed planners to watch a rival demonstrate real airframe progress while their own next fighter remained unseen. But the reveal itself was only the surface. The deeper challenge lies in the shape. This is a configuration most engineers avoid because it only works if everything else, from software to propulsion control, is nearly perfect. The J-50 stands out instantly. Traditional fighters rely on vertical tails to maintain stability, assist with turning, and prevent sideways slip. The J-50 removes all of that. No tails, no fins, no obvious stabilizers. For many designers, that would be the point where the project stops. A tailless aircraft is naturally unstable. It wants to wander, roll, or yaw, even in calm conditions. Making it fly at all is difficult. Making it fight effectively is far harder. So why would China choose such a demanding design? Because removing those surfaces also removes some of the largest radar reflectors on an aircraft. Vertical fins and flat panels bounce radar energy back toward its source. Eliminating them reduces the radar signature across multiple frequencies. Only a small number of countries even attempt this approach, and usually only after decades of research. The J-50 uses a lambda wing that blends smoothly into the fuselage. This creates a wide, clean upper surface with very few sharp edges. That shaping helps scatter radar waves rather than reflect them directly. The wing also generates strong lift at high angles of attack, which is critical for a fighter that lacks traditional tail surfaces. This kind of wing takes years to refine, suggesting China has been working quietly on this concept for a long time. One of the most unusual features is the movable wing tips. These tips can tilt up or down to help control pitch and roll. On conventional fighters, that role is handled by tails and stabilizers. On the J-50, much of that responsibility shifts to the wings themselves. The movement seen in test imagery suggests the aircraft depends on rapid, precise adjustments. That means the flight control system must be extremely fast and highly automated. Any hesitation by the computer could destabilize the jet instantly. The air intakes also reveal how refined the design is. They use diverterless bumps to guide airflow into the engines without traditional splitter plates. These bumps help shield the engine fan blades, which are among the strongest radar reflectors on any fighter. And that detail leads directly to why the J-50 is being taken so seriously. This choice shows the engineers were chasing stealth gains that go far beyond basic shaping. At the rear, the rectangular exhausts point to thrust vectoring, allowing the exhaust flow to be redirected. In effect, the engines help steer the aircraft. This becomes essential when there are no tail surfaces to rely on during sharp turns or high-angle maneuvers. All of these elements, wing shaping, movable tips, intake layout, and thrust vectoring, come together to tell a clear story. The J-50 is not a fragile experiment built for show. It is a serious attempt to master one of the most demanding configurations in modern fighter design. And if China succeeds with this layout, it gains a tool that could reshape how air combat is fought far beyond its own borders. That brings us to the next layer. Why does this aircraft put pressure on Lockheed before its own next fighter has even been revealed? For decades, Lockheed held a clear advantage in fighter design. The F-22 reset expectations for air combat. The F-35 spread across Allied air forces worldwide. NGAD was meant to be the next step, securing air dominance well into the future. Then China flew the J-50. What unsettled Lockheed was not simply that China unveiled a new jet. It was that China put a tailless prototype into open flight, while the United States had yet to release a single public image of its own next-generation fighter. In a field where secrecy is expected, the side that shows real hardware in the air gains momentum and confidence. That shock grew when analysts realized China had revealed two different aircraft at once. The heavy J-36 and the smaller J-50 were both seen flying with chase jets. Two companies, two designs, both airborne. No other nation has publicly shown dual sixth-generation prototypes like this. Even if the US is deep into NGAD development, China is the only country letting the world see what it is actually flying. That visibility shift matters. When one side demonstrates progress and the other remains silent, perception begins to tilt. And perception carries weight, especially when China's aviation history was once defined by copying foreign designs. Now, it appears to be shaping the future instead of following it. For Lockheed, the risk was not simply losing a race. It was losing control of the narrative. There is also a structural concern. The J-50 appears to fit into a planned high-low mix. The J-36 would handle long-range command and strike missions. The J-50 would serve as the more numerous air superiority platform. That suggests China is not just building a fighter, but an integrated system. And Lockheed understands that wars are decided by systems, not individual aircraft. Another warning sign is China's testing pace. Within months, new images showed a second J-50 prototype without the long nose boom used during early flight testing. That change signals growing confidence in stability, software, and flight control maturity. It also suggests the program is accelerating, not slowing down. For Lockheed, this raises a difficult question. If China is willing to show this much in public, how much more has already been solved out of sight? The J-50 is already a bold aircraft. What makes it more serious is how much remains unknown. China has allowed only fragments of information to surface, and every new image seems to create more questions than answers. That controlled silence is part of what worries analysts and adds pressure on Lockheed. One of the first clues came from a small detail. Early flights showed the J-50 carrying a long data boom on its nose, used to measure airflow and speed. Later images showed the same aircraft without it. At first, observers assumed it was a different prototype, but follow-up photos suggested otherwise. That sparked debate. Was the boom removed because the jet moved beyond early testing? Or was China testing an internal sensor system that no longer needed a physical probe? No one knows for sure. What is clear is that the aircraft was evolving quickly. The engine remains another mystery. Analysts cannot confirm whether the J-50 is using an advanced WS-10 variant or an early version of a newer power plant. Without official data, experts rely on exhaust geometry, heat patterns, and flight behavior. China's silence forces planners to consider multiple future scenarios, including versions with significantly more powerful engines. The sensor layout also leaves gaps. The chin section appears shaped for an electro-optical system, and the side bays look large enough for air-to-air weapons. But the true range, sensor fusion level, and networking capability remain unknown. Future variants could carry systems that are not visible yet. Even the test locations raise questions. Satellite imagery suggests the J-50 has operated near remote bases tied to highly sensitive programs. These facilities are reserved for priority projects. Moving the J-50 there signals how seriously China is treating it. Then there is the name itself. China has not officially confirmed J-50 at all. The aircraft has no public designation. By staying silent, China avoids locking itself into timelines or missions. It can change direction without public pressure, revealing progress only when it serves a purpose. All of these unknowns create the same problem. Lockheed cannot know how far ahead China truly is. That forces it to plan against the worst-case version of the J-50, not the most conservative one. The J-50 is not just another test aircraft, it is part of a broader shift. China is developing fighters, drones, and support systems together, not in isolation. The J-50 appears designed to operate alongside loyal wingman drones, long-range sensors, and the heavy J-36, forming a network that could span vast areas of the Pacific. That alone forces Lockheed to rethink how NGAD will function. The concern is not that the J-50 is perfect today. The concern is that it is improving steadily while revealing only what China wants others to see. Each new image shows incremental progress, cleaner shaping, new surfaces, the disappearance of early test hardware, signs that software and flight controls are moving toward maturity. For Lockheed, that pace is uncomfortable. NGAD remains hidden. Its timeline is unclear. Its flight tests are classified. Meanwhile, China is shaping the public narrative of the sixth-generation race. The side that puts real aircraft in the sky controls the story, and China is using that leverage effectively. But the greatest tension comes from what remains unseen: the engines, the sensors, the future variants, the full mission profile. If China is willing to show this much in daylight, what is happening inside closed hangars and remote test ranges that never reach public view? If the J-50 is already flying, already evolving, and already influencing the rivalry, then the real story may not be what China has built so far. If this is only the opening move, whatever comes next may not stay hidden for long. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives. Thank you.